exactly sure what it is right now. I'm going to go watch the news.
It appears, at least from this vantage point, that something has hit it. Something has gone into the World Trade Center. I do not have that confirmed in any way, shape, or form, but there is a gash across, I would want to say, about 10 stories down from the top of the World Trade Center.
All right, Tom.
Sort of from right to left and making its way down. Yes, Jeff?
Okay, we're going to interrupt you here. We've found an eyewitness who's going to talk to us about what they see. Smoke at this point is billowing from that top eighth, let's say, of the one tower.
And now we've seen what it's like from the air in the word pictures of Tom Kaminsky. What's it like on the ground here? We have an eyewitness who's called us who is on the way to work, driving to the World Trade Center. Hello, sir? Yes, what are you seeing?
I see a gaping hole at the top of the World Trade Center, almost to the top, not quite up there. I wasn't looking at it as I was driving towards it. I just heard a huge explosion. It seemed like it blew out as opposed to something going into it. And I'm looking at it real close now. Obviously, I'm not going to get there, so I have to turn around somewhere here.
How far away are you right now?
I'm 4 blocks away looking right at it.
Can you see the smoke coming from that hole?
It's a huge hole. There are flames. There's smoke. There's smoke on the others. You know, it looks like the impact was on the northbound side or something blew out on the northbound side. But I see smoke coming out on the southbound and the westbound side also. And it's the northbound tower that this happened in.
The North Tower is the one that's closer to Midtown.
Yes, that's right.
And where are you driving right now?
Well, I'm on West Street, so I'm looking right at it. I'm only 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
This is as far as I'm going to be able to go. I'm going to have to turn around somewhere.
All right.
WCBS
Thank you
News
for
time.
that.
8:52. Again, we're following as there is smoke coming from the World Trade Center, the top eighth of the North Tower. There's a gash apparently in the side of the building. And now, WCBS News time, 8:52. We have
breaking news on WCBS 880, right here, right now.
I believe if we can get in touch with him, we have a witness who saw what happened at the World Trade Center. M. David Levin, are you with us?
I am right here at the foot of the World Trade Center on the north side. Smoke is billowing out of the, I would say it's about 15 stories down from the top of the number 2, I believe it is, World Trade Center. Flames are coming out also. This apparently was a commuter plane that smashed into it with such force that the windows of the Pick-a-Bagel, in which I was just about to buy a bagel, smashed with a big bang. Everybody was very frightened, and it sounded like a fabulous explosion. And indeed, there is great devastation up there.
What happened to the commuter plane? It looks from what we're seeing that it might have actually gone through one side and out the other.
I can't see the south side of the building, but it could well have been. It hit with such force that the whole neighborhood really shook.
Well, Tom Kaminsky may have a better view for us, David. He's in Chopper 880. What are you seeing now, Tom?
I think we can sort of confirm that at least to some degree. We are now looking at flames shooting out of the north side of number 1 World Trade Center, but there are at least some windows blown out and smoke billowing out of the opposite side. We have not been able to get to the south side of the building yet. We're sort of staying right here. We have a very good vantage point, so we're staying here for the time being. However, there is smoke billowing out of both sides, really of all 4 sides, it would appear, of World Trade Center Tower number 1. And as we've been saying, this is anywhere between 10 and 15 stories down from the top. Now, as you look at the World Trade Center, this is the building with the antenna on top of it. So there is quite a bit of flame now coming out of the north face of that building, and only smoke. I don't see any flame coming out of the other approaches, but I talked to our pilot, Arthur Anderson, and he says he did see something go into that building. We were at the George Washington Bridge and beginning to make our way south. I looked up and saw a fireball, but Arthur Anderson, my pilot, says that he certainly did see something right at that building, about 10 to 15 stories up.
Tom, stay with us for a minute, will you? We want to talk to WCBS producer Kelly Edwards on the ground. Of course, you can see the fire. Where are you?
I'm just about I'm just about 15 blocks north of the World Trade Center right now on 7th Avenue. Fire trucks are screaming down 7th Avenue trying to get to the fire. It looks like the fire is about 10 stories from the top of the building. Flames are shooting out. Smoke is pouring out. This gash goes from one side of the building practically all the way to the other. You can see thick black smoke pouring out of the front of the building, the north side. I can also see it coming out of the west side, and it's certainly coming off the entire top of the building right now. It's completely covered with smoke. You can barely see the top of the building. You can see flames shooting out of the east side of that gash. The gash seems to be getting bigger. I can now see flames coming out of the east and the west side of the gash. It seems like the windows are breaking as the fire moves down the building.
Well, we had heard earlier from one of the witnesses, M. David Levin, told us that the ground floor windows had been shaking, Kelly. Now, everybody we've been speaking with seems to have a vantage point of one side of the World Trade Center. We can tell you that at least two facades of the building have giant holes, at least 2 or 3 stories high in them. We don't know what's become of people inside or where that plane might have ended up. We're trying to find out the latest for you. Of course, we're very little in the way of details. Emergency crews are still on their way to the scene as of this point.
Stay with WCBS 880 because we are right on top of this for you with reporters on the way to the scene. Tom Kaminsky is overhead giving us the bird's eye view and in fact was the first to tell us about it and see it.
Tom's been hovering around. Let's go to him right now up in Chopper 880. Tom.
All right, Jeff, back here with you. And we're trying to gather some information as to what type of plane this might have been into this area. I can tell you, as we are looking here at the north side, the north face of Tower Number 1, the gash that is in the building runs from about 10 stories up to about 15 stories, going from right to left, sloping to the left diagonally. Smoke is pouring out of that face, and now we have quite a bit of smoke and flame pouring out of the eastern side of Tower Number 1, and that also about 10 to 15 stories up. So it is our guess that whenever went into Tower Number 1 went into it and stayed there. We have not seen any evidence of any other fire on the south side of the World Trade Center. Tower Number 2, at least from our vantage point, appears to be unaffected. This appears to be entirely in Tower Number 1. But the impact point is almost certainly on the north side of Tower Number 1, about 15 stories up. We're just getting a look at the street. The traffic on West Street at this point is just beginning to come to a stop. That hasn't really happened yet. We are seeing some police and emergency crews beginning to make their way down West Street. Certainly this area is going to be not the place to be. I would want to say from about the area of Canal Street on down, at the very least, you really need to try and avoid driving in this area. And at this point, Jeff, that is all we have. We are still looking at smoke billowing out of Tower Number 1. All
right, Tom Kaminsky will come back to us, and we have reporters Peter Haskell, Mary Gay Taylor on the way to the scene. Our producer Kelly Edwards on the ground, not far, has given us a good view from the ground, and Tom Kaminsky will continue to give us a bird's eye view, and that's why you want to stay with us on WCBS 880. We've got you covered.
WCBS News Time 8:59. Let's give you a recap of what's transpired. We first saw this huge plume of smoke wafting up from the World Trade Center about, I'd say, 12 minutes ago, about 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. After that, thick black smoke began billowing from gashes in at least 2 sides of the building. Windows have been shattering. Some people, eyewitnesses we've spoke to on the air here at WCBS, say in those top 10 or 15 floors of the North Tower, there was such an explosion that it made windows shake and break on the ground 100 stories below.
Joining us now on the line is an eyewitness who is in the Empire State Building. Bob Bradley, what do you see?
I saw this plane. It didn't look like it was out of control at all. It was a medium-sized body plane with engines on both sides just fly right into the building. I thought at first it was a shadow that was going to swoop over top of the building like we've seen in the past just sitting here in our office, but this plane headed directly for the building. And note, it didn't look like there was any trouble at all with the plane. It didn't swerve at all. It just landed directly in the building. It was almost like a gray-black color in nature on the plane.
It seemed as though it just flew right into the building without...
like he wanted to fly into the building.
He wasn't trying to avoid the building.
No. This guy swoops directly into the building.
All right, that's what it looked like from one vantage point.
That's from the Empire State Building. Thank you very much.
You got it.
Okay, also to speak with us now, people are checking in from all over, from the Village Penthouse. I'm not sure exactly where that is, but we'll find out. Carl Tendler is joining us. Where are you located?
I'm near Washington Square Park. I live in a penthouse which faces directly the 2 World Trade Center buildings.
Were you looking outside when this happened?
I heard noise overhead, and I got up to see what it was. It was a low-flying aircraft. It was about 150, 200 feet off my penthouse. He was flying straight ahead, and he pulled up a little bit and went into just hit the side of the World Trade Center. There was a huge flash. The aircraft looked like he was a DC-3. He was aluminum, no markings, aluminum, and he just flew right into the building. I still can't believe it.
Well, what we can see right here as we were coming up the Hudson River, we can see thick black smoke indicating the fire is still going on right now in the World Trade Center for as far as the eye can see. And you can tell right here at the top of this tower, there's a huge gaping hole, flames still inside, thick black smoke still coming out. We have not been able to see what, if any, kind of an aircraft is inside the building. This is the best vantage point right here, and as you can see, just a huge gaping hole throughout the entire side of this tower right now.
I'm not sure. I mean, it was following the proper, as far as I could see from my house, it was following the proper path to come into LaGuardia.
Okay, coming from LaGuardia, right. All right, Paul, we appreciate your call, and hang loose, though.
Hey, Paul, one quick question now before you go, Paul. Do you have you been over near the scene?
You can't see
to see anything that's gone on the ground?
No, I can only see the smoke and the flame. Well, just basically the smoke in the air right now, right in front of me.
And we see 2 sides of the World Trade Center definitely affected by this crash. Black smoke continuing to billow out there.
But I hear a lot of sirens going in.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
Sure you do. And again, your estimation, what type of plane did
either an
report
Airbus A320 style or a Boeing 737.
Okay.
Where do you get your knowledge from? How much time do you have in a pilot?
It was another...
Oh, no. Okay.
Explosion.
Explosions, multiple explosions, ladies and gentlemen. We just saw another explosion. Obviously...
We're just watching it again. It's the first time. This is
the other tower, ladies and gentlemen. Another explosion at tower number 2 of the World Trade Center just happened live on our air.
What we have been fearing for the longest time here apparently has come to pass.
Why do you say that was definitely on purpose?
Because it just flew straight into it. It literally blew itself into World Trade Center.
TV screen, billowing smoke from a bomb or explosion. We do not know if it's a bomb. I'm speaking out of turn here. A second explosion that just happened. The first we understand was from an airplane. The second we have no idea.
No idea at all at this point what has triggered it. If we could take maybe a wider shot to give us just a different vantage point, just to try to gain a little bit of perspective. And there you can see the situation.
Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. We're in shock as much as you are.
It can't be put into words, and clearly you are looking at it as we are seeing it, as it's developing. We have no confirmation other than Associated Press reports and CNN, and as well as our crews now, that a plane did hit Tower 1, and moments ago you saw the explosions in Tower 2, and at this point no word on the cause there, no word on casualties. This is happening just within the last 30 minutes, the initial impact into Tower 1, so you can understand why it is information is slow to gather as emergency crews are racing to the scene.
And not that we needed the confirmation because we witnessed it live on our screen, but the Associated Press confirming that an explosion has happened at World Trade Center Tower number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, unbelievable. We don't know what this is involving, how it's happened, why it's happened. Another explosion, we're just told. We couldn't see it on our screen, however.
What looks to be, I'm not sure if I'm seeing this clearly. My producers may be able to help me, but you can see shards of glass and other debris raining down, and particularly from Tower 2. I'm told that we have another witness on the phone, Don McLennan.
No, it's John McLennan.
John, I'm sorry. Tell me what it is you saw. Did
well,
you just witness
I'm at 200 Park Avenue, the MetLife building.
Mm-hmm.
I looked south, and I just happened, I heard the plane go over our building far lower than it should have been and headed straight for the World Trade Center, and I thought, I couldn't figure out where it would, which airport it could be headed for with that route, and then I saw it actually heading below the top of the World Trade Center, and it just hit. And it was a 2-engine passenger jet. There was a ball of fire, and you've seen the rest.
Okay, we just are getting told that second explosion we just saw was another plane?
I actually saw a second ball of flame, and that might have been, I couldn't see something hit because there's a building blocking that part of the view.
Okay.
John, were you able to see any type of identification?
No, it was a big 2-engine jetliner, and that's all I know.
Are you able at all to see the street below in the area?
No, we're up at 42nd Street. I mean, I have a great view of the top half of the top quarter of the World Trade Center, but that's it.
Okay.
As we're looking.
I feel like we're under siege or something, and I don't know where to go or what to do. From my apartment, I can see both of them just burning up. Something bad, don't you think? So do I. I think it's terrorism. There are so many people in the World Trade Center. Do you know how often I go down there? That's where I shop. Exactly. And that second one looked like it was headed straight for it. It was targeting it. Everybody's on cell phones. I can't get a hold of my husband. Everybody can get a hold of him. He's going. I gotta go.
Some people said they thought they saw a missile. Well, I don't know how people could differentiate, but we might keep open the possibility that this was a missile attack on these buildings.
Ali, I must say that we have an eyewitness who said it was a large plane that crashed first. And then as we were watching the live picture here in the studio, we saw a plane crash into the other tower of the World Trade Center. And again, let's just to be sure, there it is. There it is. The plane went right through the other tower of the World Trade Center.
That is a very hard thing to watch.
And clearly,
these are incredible pictures that we're watching this morning. These, thanks to our affiliate WNYW in New York. You are looking at this picture. It is the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, both of them being damaged by impacts from planes. We saw one happen at about maybe 9 minutes before the top of the hour. And just moments ago, so maybe 18 minutes after the first impact, the second tower was impacted by another, what appeared to be another passenger plane. In fact, we've got some tape replay of that. Do we have the tape available right now? Here's the plate. Here is the tape. You see the plane coming in from what looks like the east side, and it blows into the building with the flames and the smoke billowing out. the other side of the tower. It's hard for me to tell exactly which is the north side and which is the south side, but it appears it's coming out of the north side there. Incredible pictures. These happened just moments ago. And I believe we have someone with us on the line. Ira Firmer. We have Ira Firmer, the former NTSB spokesman. And you're watching these pictures as well with us, are you not?
Yeah, I'm with you on CNN.
What can you make of what we have seen, and particularly with this replay we just saw moments ago?
That's absolutely inexplicable. There shouldn't be any aircraft in that area, much less something heading what looked like deliberately for the World Trade Center tower.
You don't think there's any way this could be any kind of an accident, no kind of a navigational equipment failure or some sort of a navigational quirk by beacons or whatever?
No, you've got incredibly good visibility at this point, and no pilot is going to be relying on navigational equipment in such a circumstance that would cause them to crash into the World Trade Center.
How far out of the way from an approach to either LaGuardia or Kennedy would a plane have to be to hit the World Trade Center?
There are approaches that come up along the Hudson River, which is to the west of the World Trade Center, and those aircraft usually wind up going into LaGuardia. So you can come within a mile or two of the World Trade Center, but it is such a visible object as you're approaching New York City that it's just not possible for a pilot during the daytime to have taken a course that would put it right into the World Trade Center. A second occurrence within a few minutes is beyond belief.
And as you can see, there definitely is no weather problem, so weather would be definitely ruled out as a factor in this case.
Yes, the course is a normal course. I mean, for commercial pilots coming into New York, it certainly appeared from the video on CNN that the second aircraft was heading for the tower and that it was a commercial-sized aircraft.
Could you have a better idea about what size that plane was? It was kind of hard for me to tell. You're an expert in these matters. Could you look at that tape and tell what size that plane was?
It would have to be slowed down, and you'd need more than one angle for it because you'd want to see how many engines on it, the shape of the tail.
Well, if it's possible, gang, could we go ahead and replay that tape right now? Do we have the tape ready of the second plane impacting? We're going to put that tape on in just a second. Here, we're about to roll it now. If you can, sir, I don't want you to speculate, but if you can, give us an idea of what you think might be at play here. What kind of plane we're talking about, or at least what size. If we're talking about one that would hold, say, 100 people, one that would hold 300 people. From what you see, we'll have to back the tape up further than that, guys. Here we go.
It's very hard to get a perspective on it. I don't know how far away we are at this, but that looks to me like it could be certainly a passenger jet and one of those aircraft that could hold 100 or more people. I caution you at this point to wonder whether or not that airplane was occupied by more than just a pilot or a crew. We don't necessarily know that there were any passengers aboard that airplane.
Understood.
Darren Kagan joining the conversation here, sir, but there's no indication that there would be any air traffic on purpose in the area of the World Trade Center at this time of day, or any time of day for that matter.
Well, not directly into the World Trade Center.
No, but even close to it.
You would be clearing the World Trade Center by a few miles. Normal operations. And when you're looking at the pictures that you see with all this smoke and fire and all that, it's just absolutely unbelievable to think that a flight crew that wouldn't ordinarily see the World Trade Center, wouldn't ordinarily be on course, would now not see this as a flaming beacon to avoid.
Let me ask you this about the airspace. Given that it appears that two different airplanes have flown into the World Trade Center in 18 minutes, is it possible to shut down that airspace and keep another plane from doing something just like it?
I don't think that this represents an accident, and so I don't think that we're talking about having to now keep other aircraft away. This picture that CNN is broadcasting live is probably from a range of a couple of miles away, and you can see that.
No, certainly that, but if there was somebody who intentionally was trying to do the same thing again, is there a way to shut down the airspace to keep planes out?
No, you can't shut down airspace. There's no gate, there's no fence in airspace. All you can do is broadcast that airspace is closed, but if someone is intent on breaking through it, That happens with our military airspace all the time off the coast.
I want to bring up a couple of points right now, if I may. We have just been told that President Bush has been informed of this incredible tragedy happening in New York. He did have an event scheduled at 9:30 this morning, which we were going to cover here. He has just canceled that event. We expect he will probably have some comments fairly soon, and we will bring those to you live the moment that we understand he is available. But I'd like to ask you once again, Ira, if I can get back to asking you about this particular crash. Is it possible that those who are tracking planes either at LaGuardia through the radar, can I give us some more information about exactly what happened here? Were these planes, I guess, using beacons to come in, or if there's some sort of identification of these planes as they approach the New York area?
Yes, there should be if they were under air traffic control. You've got one eyewitness telling you that the first aircraft flew from Westchester and flew down through Manhattan and directly into the World Trade Center, presumably the North Tower. And now you've got, you're showing the other aircraft coming in, looks to me like it would be from the west, into the other tower. Those planes could be, should be, normally would be under air traffic control, but it is also entirely possible for aircraft to fly into, through, or over New York, or in this case into a building in New York, without being under the control. And we use that word advisedly. All that means is information is what air traffic control is, and just operate and do whatever they want if they don't follow the rules of air traffic control.
I affirmatively thank you very, very much for your insight, and the longer we talk, the less convinced many will become that this was an accident. We thank you very much for your insight.
More information on that just ahead. Now we want to bring in Todd Harris. Todd, on the scene, saw what happened. Todd, are you with us?
Yes, I had a perfect view, and the plane was coming in. I noticed it a second before it hit the building. It looked like it was moving slowly, and it lined itself up to hit the building directly.
Are you talking about the first plane or the second plane?
The first plane.
And Todd, tell us exactly where you are, where you had this great view.
I was on Highway 278, like a dead-on view of the side that it hit the building.
All right, Todd, hang on. We're going to continue our conversation. Leon has something to jump in here with.
Yes, I'm checking the wires even as we speak. The Associated Press is reporting right now that the FBI in Washington is investigating reports that these two plane crashes are the result of foul play. There is a report here by the Associated Press of a possible plane hijacking. They don't say two, but they say a possible plane hijacking. Let's go to Kelly Arena, who's on the phone right now from Washington. Kelly? Hello, Kelly Arena, are you there? All right, Kelly Arena. There's Kelly. Kelly, what have you learned?
Okay, well, an FBI official has just told CNN that they are investigating, but they have not yet determined whether or not this was indeed a terrorist act. The official that I spoke to said that so far there has been no communication, no one claiming responsibility for either of those crashes. There is an investigation underway. If there is anything to be said officially, it will come out of the New York City field office of the FBI, which is right now involved in that investigation to find out whether or not it was. But I have to tell you, I repeat, right now the FBI has not determined whether or not this is a terrorist act, although they are investigating.
All right, thank you very much, Kelly Arena. We appreciate that. Darren,
let's go ahead and bring back in Todd Harris. Todd, are you still with us? We don't have Todd. Okay, once again, if you're just joining us, the breaking story that we're following out of New York City, within the span of 18 minutes, two separate planes crashing into the World Trade Center. The rescue operations underway, not clear. We're going to show you, this is the second plane after the first tower was already on fire. This happened just minutes ago. We'll let the pictures tell the story. You saw it live here on CNN as it happened. The plane crashed right into the side of the World Trade Center, causing a huge explosion. Now, as we speak, and we're showing you live pictures now, smoke and fire taking place in both towers of the World Trade Center.
And it appeared that second plane that we actually did have on videotape, on its approach toward that tower, actually turned. And I have to think, I'm not an expert in these things, so I don't know, but it would seem as though that move actually may have caused much more damage. These are incredible pictures, as you can see here.
Let's keep the pictures up as we go ahead and talk to more eyewitnesses. Joe Trachtenberg joining us on the phone. Joe, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what your vantage point is and what you've seen so far?
Well,
We got, I heard on the radio that one of the towers was on fire, and we went to a high point in our building, which is on the 25th floor, and you had a clear view of the both World Trade Centers, and the one tower was smoking hard. And there was another plane that was flying low, and we just looked at it, and before you know it, just kamikaze, boom, right into the other tower, and mass explosion, windows flying. It was horrible. Still distraught looking at it.
Were you close enough to see or get a general idea of what kind of plane that was that flew in the second time?
Well, I'm not an expert on planes, but it wasn't didn't seem like a big passenger jet. It was a smaller type plane because it made some pretty radical turn, and, you know, they were flying low, and you're not used to see big planes flying over Manhattan because I don't think you're allowed to, but it was pretty tough.
And explain to me again what your vantage point is, where you are in the city looking at this.
We're in Chelsea. It's like 25th Street and 7th Avenue, and it's clear looking all the way downtown, and you could see the buildings, you know, the whole downtown, because it's a clear day, and it's a disaster.
And once again, describe for us what you saw as that plane went to the second building.
That plane just flew straight into the second building on the downtown side, it appeared. It was just a huge explosion, and smoke just immediately, and fire started immediately coming from the second tower as it hit, and there was glass flying everywhere.
All right, looks like we have a little bit of audio problem with that, so I'm going to say thanks to Joe Trachtenberg for talking to us and telling us what he saw. We were watching it right here, live on CNN, as that plane went in. He had a closer vantage point and could see, as you heard Leon, he was saying he doesn't think it was a big jet, but a smaller plane, closer up from where he could see it.
Well, we do have a tape of a recounting by another witness, another eyewitness. We're going to go to some tape that we're getting from our affiliate WABC in New York, where they interviewed an eyewitness who saw the second crash as it happened.
I'd say the whole takes about, looks like 6, 7 floors were taken out. And there's more explosions right now. Hold on, people are running.
Hold on just a moment. We've got an explosion inside.
The building's exploding right now. You got people running up the street.
Okay.
Hold on, I'll tell you what's going on.
Okay, just put Winston on pause there for just a moment.
Okay, the whole building just exploded some more. The whole top part.
Okay.
The building's still intact. People are running up the streets. Am I still connected?
Winston, this would support probably what Libby and you both said, that perhaps the fuselage was in the building that would cause a second explosion such as that.
Well, that's what just happened then.
That certainly.
Yeah, people are running up.
We're getting word that perhaps.
Okay, hold on. The people here everybody's panicking.
Keep in mind that the first plane hit about 8:48 a.m., so there had to already be a number of people at work inside the World Trade Center. We're going to go right now, bring in Rose Arce, one of our producers here at CNN. She's with us on the phone and has with her a number of people who have escaped the building. Rose.
Yes, there's a huge crowd. I'd say about hundreds of people on the streets that come from south to north. I mean, really thousands of people that have been running from inside these buildings. You know, it's a very heavily trafficked area in downtown, the World Trade Center. Many of them were inside the building when they felt the explosion. And they say there was just pandemonium. There was no warning, no alarms, no anything. Everyone just raced from their desks, ran downstairs, and now there's a steady stream of folks running away from the building. Some people saying that they're fearing there'll be another explosion, and when they saw the second plane, convinced that this was dangerous, there's just an absolute flood of folks escaping downtown Manhattan right now.
And Rose, do you have anybody with you that could talk about being inside the World Trade Center when this happened?
Right now, honestly, there are scores of people that are literally running by me. There's debris on the base of the building that has continued to fall, as you know, even as far as a block away from the building. And what's happened is that everyone seems to have figured out that there's ongoing danger, and there's just a stream of folks running as quickly as they can uptown away from this.
Understandably. What about rescue efforts? I would imagine there's still a number of people inside those buildings.
Well, right now what you see is there's trucks trying to get through, and people have actually jumped from the crowd and are trying to help direct traffic to try to get emergency vehicles there. There is no traffic going in the other direction, but because of the flow of people, it looks like some emergency vehicles are actually having trouble getting to the scene.
And from where you're standing, is there any kind of command center, any place that people are being directed toward?
Right now, what there is there's a crush of emergency vehicles and rescue vehicles, but they don't seem to be quite organized in any direction. There's fire department vehicles on the one side where you see the smoke coming out of the building. On the other hand, you see groups of police officers trying to organize the crowd and in more orderly fashion. I think there seems to be some fear on their part that such a huge crowd of people might injure each other on the way out.
All right, Rose Arce on the ground there near the World Trade Center. We continue our coverage live with the live pictures as we go.
And we're just now getting word again from the Associated Press now saying that the crash of these two aircraft into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York appear to be an act of terrorism. This, they are quoting a U.S. official. They did not say which department this U.S. official was speaking from, or the authority this official was actually carrying at this particular point, but they're saying that a U.S. official is now saying to the Associated Press, it is official, well, he is saying at least, that these two aircraft crashes we've seen into each of the towers of the World Trade Center are the act of terrorism. We're just getting word now that President Bush is going to be coming out, and he's going to have comments momentarily. We understand. We're keeping an eye on the picture from Sarasota. He's going to be returning to Washington almost immediately, we understand. Darren?
And in fact, as you mentioned, President Bush is in Florida today. We're supposed to have an education event just minutes from now. That has been canceled. Our Major Garrett is traveling with the president. Major, maybe you can tell us a little bit more on the president's immediate plans.
Good morning, Darren. President Bush, as you said, will make a statement here at Emma E. Booker Elementary School in Sarasota on the catastrophe at the Twin Towers in New York. Following that statement, the president will board Air Force One and return immediately to Washington. We are told by White House officials traveling with the president in Sarasota that he was notified either shortly before 9 a.m. or just shortly after. We don't have an exact moment of the notification of the president. We believe his chief of staff, Andrew Card, told him of the events in New York City. The president has been monitoring them as best as he can. He was, at one moment this morning, sitting reading a book to some of the elementary school children here as scheduled. Reporters asked him if he was aware of the situation in New York. He nodded a bit gravely and said he would have something to say about that shortly. We are expecting that statement any moment now. I can tell you here in Sarasota, with those traveling with the president, they are trying to sift through all of the amazing and terrifying both pictures and details as they can get them from New York City, but no confirmation here from White House officials about what this in fact is, whether it's accident or terrorism. They are trying to gather information as best they can, give it to the president, and trying to keep things on a very calm and even keel if possible.
And on that note, Major, it sounds like that exchange of questions with the president came at what would be a sensitive time if he was sitting in front of a bunch of school children and not wanting to scare the children.
Well, precisely. And the president has a way of letting reporters know that it's either an appropriate time or an inappropriate time to take questions. He does that in many different environments, many different situations. Clearly this morning with the crowd of children, he wanted to keep an even keel, keep the situation under control as best as possible. He just nodded and said, we'll talk about this later.
Right. So once again, we do expect to hear from the president soon. A time frame on that?
Within the next 10 minutes or so. Again, things are very much in flux. Things are a bit confused. The event here, which was scheduled to talk about education reform, talk about the importance of reading, that has been scrubbed, and the president is trying to gather whatever information, all the information he can from various White House sources, make a statement, and then get aboard Air Force One, get back to Washington just as soon as he can.
Major Garrett traveling with the president in Sarasota, Florida. Major, thank you very much. And of course, as soon as the president begins to speak, you'll see those comments live here.
Disastrous result right here on our screen.
Let us go to Richard Thompson on the telephone. He is a licensed pilot and he witnessed this. Sir, from taking a look at what you saw, what can you tell us as a pilot about those airplanes?
Well, I was sitting in my office on the 8th floor at 632 Broadway at approximately 9:47, and at 9:47, give or take a minute.
You mean 8:47, don't you, sir?
8:47 this morning. The plane went by probably 50 to 100 feet above the building, streaking directly towards the World Trade Center, and it was a small business jet of some type. It was going so fast, and my window view is so short, but I could hear it screaming by at basically full power, no engine problems, going straight for the building. And by the time that I could get out of my chair, open the window to see what the hell was going on, it had hit the building, and that was probably a total of 5 to 7, 8 seconds.
So that would have been the first of
that was the first.
The explosions.
Exactly, and it was directly, everyone was flying the plane was directly...
Richard, stay tuned. We've got the president. We're going to go to him next, but we want to come back to you.
Okay.
Going back to Washington after my remarks, Secretary of Rod Page and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
You have just heard President Bush acknowledging that this was an apparent terrorist attack today on the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. He has ordered a full-scale investigation and offered, of course, his prayers for whatever victims there might have been of this tragedy. And again, we have no information about who has been hurt, who was killed, if anyone. We know nothing other than the fact that there has been this apparent attack involving 2 aircraft. Can we go back to the telephone and Richard Thompson now? Are you still there, sir?
Yes.
Again, you are a licensed pilot. You were describing to us that you saw what appeared to be a small business jet that was flying, that came screaming by your office window and went right into the tower.
Exactly. Is that being a pilot is the first thing I recognized, that there was no way that a business jet could be flying at that level at this time of day over the city without special permission. So that I tried to crane my head out the window, but within 5 seconds before I could open my window and look out, it already had flown directly into the building. I mean, a pilot, I know that you could have avoided that at 99%. If you were in trouble flying that plane, you could have avoided that building. And so whomever was at the controls directly flew that thing right into the side of that building.
Could you, again, did you see the second aircraft? Apparently it might have come in from the other direction.
No, I couldn't see it. I was looking at the building when it hit, and I saw my colleague Tim Lufkin and I saw it hit the building, but we did not see it fly into the building. We saw the explosion from it.
And again, I guess we're still trying to figure out, there are some reports that these planes were hijacked. The FBI is said to be investigating that. But the one that you saw appeared to be a small business jet.
Yes. And the second plane was obviously a larger plane because the explosion from the second plane was tenfold larger than the first plane.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, we appreciate very much the information you've given us this morning.
And may God be with all those people, because this is going to be a tough day for all of New York.
Yes, it is, and we thank you.
We now have reports that the New York Stock Exchange is being evacuated in the wake of the disaster at the World Trade Center. They had planned to open as normal, so right now everything at the Stock Exchange is on hold. And right now, let's go down to Joe Avalar, who's on the street downtown. Joe?
All right, we're down here in Soho, as a matter of fact. You're looking at a picture from Prince and Worcester Street, and on the ground you can see what has happened all over Manhattan. People are stopped and they're staring. They're looking up and they're trying to figure out all of what's happening. In talking to some of these people, I met someone, Philip Russo, who actually witnessed the whole thing. You were driving east on Bleecker Street, that's correct?
That's correct. I was driving east on Bleecker Street.
Have you step around this way? We'll put it in the background.
I heard what sounded like a jet flying very low. I looked up, I saw a blue and white jet, 2 engines, going obviously in the wrong direction.
You were thinking jet, you were thinking 737, something like that, a large jet.
A large jet, a large commercial jet, but with no markings that I could identify other than blue stripes on a white plane. It sounded too low. I looked up, it looked too low, going in the wrong direction, and I followed it into the building.
Flew straight into the building?
Straight into the building, dead on, disgusting sight.
Then you continued to look up at the building and you saw the second jet.
Well, then we were looking for about 5 minutes, just in horror at what happened, saw a second jet coming from the west that looked identical, both in color and in form, and it smashed right into the second building. Huge explosion on this side facing us.
Now we're all standing out. We're staring at the building, all of us, in horror.
Yeah. It's the only way to describe it. Horror, sadness, and disgust.
You talked about fear and being scared.
And what next?
And feelings of vulnerability.
Two huge planes crash into, the World Trade Center. What's going to happen next?
Mr. Russo, thank you very much for talking with us. As we look back up at the World Trade Center, and I know you can see it better with helicopters, but you can see it from the ground here as well. The picture that we are looking at, that most of Lower Manhattan is looking at, flames inside the World Trade Center and the huge hole. And we can all see how the flames have spread to upper parts of the building, how it's billowing out of the building, and how the other building is occluded. And everybody from this vantage point is, as Mr. Russo is saying, looking at it in horror, looking at it in fear, worried about yourself, I imagine. Where were you, sir?
Right underneath the Trade Center when it hit. Second one, both of them hit. We ran like hell all the way up here.
Did you happen to look up?
Yeah, we seen the second one run right into it. We're unloading the truck. We got right out of there. Scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
The planes never veered, did they? The jets just went right into it.
The second one, we heard the first one, seen everything flying out of the building. And the second one, we actually seen run right into the building. It came right from behind the building and ran right into the other side of the first tower, the further one down.
It's a terrible question, but what are you thinking about when you're looking at something like that?
I'm telling you, we ran because stuff was flying everywhere. It's the scariest thing in my life.
And that's...
Never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it, man.
And your name, sir?
Sean O'Neill. Still tell my wife I'm all right.
It is a way for people to let them know everybody's okay as they stand and watch this in horror. You're just walking through the area, sir?
No, I was with him.
You were with him?
And we heard the explosion. And I'll never forget that explosion, I'll tell you that. We were just under some scaffolding and debris started falling all over the place.
Now, people here talked about the second explosion and didn't think it was that loud, didn't feel that it was...
We were there. It was loud. I'm going to tell you that. We were right there for both of them, and it was loud.
Windows coming down off the building.
We just had, like, rocks and stuff, just every type of debris you could think of just falling all over the place.
Now, you were there when this happened.
Yes, we were right
Why
there.
did you stop up here in Soho and then turn around and look at it?
You just have to see what happens.
First time we turn around and look.
You really, we're just running from there. I mean,
First
to be honest
to run
with you.
for safety, basically.
Yeah.
Get out of there.
And I don't know why. There's a whole bunch of people driving now for someone down there, just blocking the fire trucks and everything. We were trying to clear the streets and let fire trucks go through. And
it's a madhouse down there.
It's madhouse.
That's really a good point to New Yorkers who may be watching us, however they're watching or listening to us right now, is to try to get out of that area to let the emergency crews do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Because there are clearly people still trapped up there, and firefighters and emergency crews still need to do a lot of work. And you can see as we're standing here that fire is spreading to different parts of the building, different floors, as it continues to engulf the building. Just a horrible, horrible sight from here in Soho. It is sad.
Saddest thing I've ever seen, man. Shoo.
It's sad. It's nothing like I've ever seen. Nothing like anybody here in New York has ever seen either. That's the scene here from Prince and Worcester Street, and we'll talk to some other people as time goes on.
Joe, you are not close enough to... Okay, apparently Joe cannot hear us, so thank you, Joe. We appreciate that. Obviously, we are, again, trying to ferret out all the information we can about exactly what happened in Lower Manhattan this morning. The president has said it was a terrorist attack. There were 2 airplanes involved. Dozens of eyewitnesses have told us that. One of them appeared to be bigger than the other. The second bigger than the other.
And we all witnessed it right here on live television. Caught us all completely off guard. A normal work day here in Manhattan has come to a standstill. We've been told that the subway lines 1, 2, 3, and 9 have been shut down. All the Hudson River crossings have been shut down. The New York Stock Exchange has closed down for the day. And right now, a lot of people are just stunned in shock. Again, 2 airplanes, 2 separate incidents, minutes apart, crashing into both towers of the World Trade Center. And you certainly see the result as far as the structural damage. I mean, it is major. And as you said, President Bush said that this is an apparent terrorist attack. We expect to hear from Mayor Giuliani in just a couple of minutes. Governor Pataki is in town. As a matter of fact, he does have an office in the World Trade Center, but President Bush says that he has talked to the governor.
Right.
So as far as we know, the governor is okay. And like I said, we should hear from Mayor Giuliani in the next couple of minutes.
But again, to reiterate, we know nothing about what happened to the people who work on in those floors, in those buildings. So we are simply waiting to find out about injuries and casualties, if indeed that's what happened. So you were looking at a scene that one would wish you could never witness in a city like this.
And of course, this is the second major attack on the World Trade Center. There was the bombing back in 1993. And of course, that was at the bottom. And the top of the building, obviously very vulnerable, and we certainly witnessed that today.
Right, with all the security changes that they've made on the bottom, so nobody can get up there without the right kind of clearance. But it's vulnerable to attack by air.
Absolutely, you can't stop it up there.
We are going to once again go to Katie McGee because, as we've been telling you, the city is literally at a standstill. No one's being allowed in from any of the river crossings. And the subway lines have been shut down in that area, and the airports are all closed. Katie, what more can you tell us?
Jane, this is the latest. The city at this point is at a standstill. All three major area airports, LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark, are closed at this point to all incoming and outgoing traffic. All bridges and tunnels. No one is letting any traffic head into town. At this point, outbound, you are going to find some people. We just saw some folks that had been sitting in one of the tubes coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel. They were allowed out, but now everybody being turned away. We also saw a backup down near Canal Street waiting to get into the outbound Holland. Those people also being turned away. At this point, again, no one being allowed to head into the city. For all intents and purposes, all train service suspended is what we're hearing at this point. Police are saying, please leave the city if you can. Of course, this is rough because of the way traffic is right now. You really, really want to steer clear of anywhere south of Midtown, and again, everyone right now being turned away. We saw traffic trying to get into the Lincoln Tunnel, actually turning around and backing up buses, New Jersey Transit buses, bringing people back into New Jersey, never even making it close to the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel.
Katie, what do you think right now would probably be the best way to get out of Manhattan? Probably head up the FDR and the West Side Highway?
At this point, you're going to want to try and get as north as possible. I can see from one of my cameras live right now the westbound Cross Bronx heading in towards the outbound George Washington Bridge. Traffic is in an absolute crawl right now, but they are letting you get onto the bridge and, from what it looks like, come in over it and back into New Jersey. I do see traffic coming outbound George Washington Bridge, inbound again, completely stopped. If you were planning on heading into the city, even if you think you may still have a meeting, at this point, again, you're being advised to please stay where you are.
For example, if you lived in New Jersey, your best bet probably would be go through Westchester County, cross the Tappan Zee Bridge, and come back down?
You may want to try that out. Let me take a look right now and see how my Tappan Zee Bridge camera looks. Just bear with me for 1 second, and I'll tell you. Actually, it looks like right now, traffic heading into Westchester is moving, but it's at a crawl. Again, at this point, things are happening so rapidly. If you were to leave home in Westchester right now, I can't tell you you'd definitely be able to get into town in another half an hour, 40 minutes or so.
Well, it sounds to me like
Jane, we're just getting a report that there's been an attack on the Pentagon. This is the Pentagon. This is from the network. This is the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia.
These are pictures that have just come in to us here at News Channel 4. You are looking at live pictures of what appears to be an attack on the Pentagon. We can tell you nothing more than what you were looking at. This is approximately an hour ago that we had one airplane crash into the northern of the World Trade Center towers, and about 18 minutes later, another airplane crashed into the southern of the towers, and now we have this.
We also hear that the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was apparently hijacked after takeoff from Boston. It means there's a very good possibility that that plane did have some passengers on board.
Do we know what kind of an airplane is it? What does it say? It doesn't say?
At this time, it does not say. It just says the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was hijacked after takeoff from Boston. That according to a U.S. official.
Now, according to the pilot that we had on a few minutes ago, he said that appeared to be a smaller jet, business type of jet.
Yes.
So perhaps it was some sort of a commuting airline or something like that. Let us go back and listen to what President Bush had to say a few moments ago. This was before this latest explosion at the Pentagon.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you.
This was President Bush about 20 minutes ago. But now let us tell you that since that statement, there has been an explosion at the Pentagon, and we have on the wire now a story that says an Associated Press reporter saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the building. And
this is a live picture of the White House. We understand the West Wing has been evacuated. Again, the president is not at the White House in D.C. He is down in Sarasota. He was reading to a class of children at a school when he was told what happened, and that's where he held his press conference. But again, two planes have hit the World Trade Center, and now witnesses say just a few moments ago in Arlington, Virginia, another plane has plunged into the Pentagon.
And again, we have no information about exactly what happened down there, other than the fact that some sort of an aircraft has crashed near or into the Pentagon. So obviously, it is a day that we are witnessing something we have never seen before, and we don't know anything more about who's responsible for it than we have since the very beginning, which was about an hour ago, which was when the first aircraft,
as the president said, apparently a terrorist attack.
Exactly, and he has ordered full-scale investigations and has vowed to use every effort he can and that this country can to find out who is responsible and to bring them to justice. We have had numerous eyewitnesses who have talked about the airplanes that they saw literally smash into those two buildings about 18 minutes apart within the hour. And obviously it was something that they witnessed with shock and with horror. And we have nothing to tell you at this point about the number of injuries or the fatalities. We understand Mayor Giuliani is about to hold a press conference, and perhaps he will be able to give us some more information about all of that.
This just crossed about the Pentagon. An Associated Press reporter said he saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the building. He says smoke is billowing out of the Pentagon. So obviously now we're looking at the hijacking probably of 3 commercial airliners here in the United States. We know the first one that plunged into the World Trade Center came from the airport in Boston. And through a transmission, they learned that that plane was hijacked.
We should also warn those of you who are watching us that if you have plans to come into New York City today, you must cancel them. The city is literally shut down. The stock exchange has been closed. The airports are closed. The bridges, the tunnels, closed inbound and pretty much outbound at this point. The subways, all train service has been stopped. So we, of course, recommend that you stay put wherever you are and stay tuned to find out exactly what is happening.
And we've just learned that after what has happened at the Pentagon, that the West Wing of the White House has been evacuated, as well as the U.S. Capitol now. So I'm sure all government buildings are being shut down in the nation's capital and pretty much around the country. And I'm sure that we are now on we're on terrorist alert, probably nationwide, I would think.
And there's another report that's just come over that says the White House was threatened with a terrorist attack, a source says. We have another report from an eyewitness at the Pentagon. Says it was a huge fireball, a huge orange fireball. And another witness said that it might have been a helicopter that exploded. We've had an AP reporter who says it appears to him to have been a large airliner of some sort. And we do have reports that, of course, the FBI is investigating reports that it could have been hijacked aircraft that crashed.
As a matter of fact, the FAA has just now halted all air traffic throughout the United States. So as of right now, there are no commercial airliners in the air.
I doubt that has ever happened before in this country.
I don't think so.
So again, we do have a bulletin that I see here that says a Palestinian DFLP official denies any kind of responsibility for the World Trade Center crash. You know, again, everybody is trying to find out exactly what it is that has happened here. We simply do not know who is responsible. If we might, could we see the video again that showed us the second airliner crashing into the southern of the buildings?
Now, as you see, you will see in a couple of moments here, a plane will come into the picture from the upper right-hand corner of your screen, if you're watching at home. Coming down here in just a few seconds. as our camera backs up from Chopper 4. There you see the plane coming into the picture. It will dip down below the first building. We don't see it for a couple of seconds, and then it comes back out and slams into the other tower at the World Trade Center.
Again, this has all happened within the past hour and 5 minutes or so. We are witnessing things that we've never seen anything like it before. Obviously, there was a terrorist attack back in 1993, about 8 years ago, on the Twin Towers. At that point, 6 people were killed, 1,000 people were injured. Major security measures were put into effect after that, making sure that people did not get into that building unless they had the proper clearance. But obviously, the buildings today were vulnerable to air. We do not know anything about the people who were working inside those buildings. Obviously, it's a full work day in New York City, a Tuesday in September, and it's also primary day. So people were going to work as usual. Now, it happened a few minutes before 9 in one of the buildings.
Yes.
Well, one would assume that maybe some of those offices weren't quite open yet.
I would think so. A lot of people had not arrived to work. We certainly hope that is the case. As you said, the first explosion, the first plane slamming into the first building, a plane that was hijacked from Boston, happened about 8:50, somewhere between 8:50 and 9 o'clock this morning. And it was 18 minutes later, we saw right here on our live picture from Chopper 4, the second plane, which witnesses have described as a full commercial airliner, slamming into the second tower. And you saw the dramatic explosion. And then, of course, just a couple of minutes ago, witnesses say that another commercial airliner has slammed into the Pentagon down in Arlington, Virginia. The U.S. Capitol and the White House have both been evacuated, and we understand that the White House had received a threat of a terrorist attack.
Now we're looking back at the Pentagon. Again, you can see the smoke billowing from there. We have no other information at this point about casualties or injuries or exactly what it was that smashed into the Pentagon earlier today. That happened, what, 25 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago? Something of that sort.
One of the other pictures we actually saw a member of the military in full fatigue.
Outside the White House.
Outside the White House, fully loaded and ready to go for anything.
We expect that Mayor Giuliani is going to be speaking shortly. As you can imagine, I'm sure there is a scene of much confusion now at downtown in Lower Manhattan, outside the World Trade Center towers. We have just been told that the Pentagon is being evacuated at this point. And we're looking back at the World Trade Center towers here. The smoke continues to billow. The fire is clearly not under control yet.
Jan, we have another witness on the telephone of the second plane slamming into the second tower. His name is Robert Thomas from Brooklyn Heights. Can you hear me, Robert?
Yes, I can.
Can you tell us exactly what you saw?
I was on the roof deck of my building watching the fire from the first explosion, and I was on the phone with my parents in Florida, and I watched the second plane coming in from Staten Island-ish area, and I was telling my mom on the phone, that plane is too low. I can't believe it's that close to the building after the first one hit. And it was gray on the top plane. It was about the size of one of the shuttles, maybe coming from D.C. area. It was not a small plane. It was like a 737 or something. And whatever airline is gray on the top. And I saw it hit the building. I have a very good friend who works at Windows in the World, the pastry chef, Heather Ho, and I hope to God she's okay today.
Have you attempted to reach her?
I tried to call her at home. The work number is busy, of course. I tried to call her at home and got her message.
Okay. Again, we've been talking about how the FBI is reporting, or is investigating reports that at least one aircraft, if not two, were hijacked earlier today. So from your vantage point, what you could see appeared to be the size of perhaps a shuttle aircraft.
Right. It was not a small plane. It was a big plane.
Okay.
I know people have been saying a small commuter, but it wasn't small. It was definitely it definitely held a good group of people.
Mm-hmm. Could you see anybody through the windows or the cockpit of that aircraft?
No,
were you too far away?
It wasn't that close, but I could clearly see the plane coming in. I could clearly see it aiming straight for the building. It was in a long, swooping motion. It wasn't a jerky flight. It went straight into it.
Oh, my.
And it was it was so low, it was unbelievable to watch. I tell you what, I'm scared right now.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments, and we thank you very much for giving us this information, because, of course, we We are trying to find out exactly what happened on this Tuesday morning.
Jane, we're learning the State Department has also been evacuated. The Associated Press has learned that the White House was evacuated after the Secret Service did receive a credible threat of a terrorist act against the White House.
Does it say what time that threat came in?
No, it does not. So we don't know if it was before the planes crashed into the World Trade Center or after.
What we're seeing now is that there's information that the aircraft at the Pentagon crashed in a helicopter landing pad near the Pentagon. Again, the West Wing of the White House evacuated amid threats of terrorism.
As well as the U.S. Capitol and the State Department now.
Exactly. One of the planes, we're also being told that one of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center had been hijacked after takeoff from Boston, as you've just said, citing a transmission from that airplane. Let's go and review for you exactly what has happened as a result of all of this. All airplane traffic across this country
yes,
has been grounded. There are no airplanes leaving or land. I would assume they can land, those that are up in the air.
Right.
But there are no aircraft that are going to be leaving any of the airports around the country for at least the time being. We do not know how long. It is virtually impossible to get up into this city right now. The bridges, the subways, the tunnels, everything is shut down. There are major traffic jams from people who were trying to leave or trying to get in. Obviously, it is a good day to stay put wherever you are. Obviously, the airports here are all closed. Right. The stock exchange has been closed.
Closed down. Subways, the 1, 2, 3, and 9, all train service in and out of the city is now shut down. And, you know, not that in the big picture, this is really not that important at this moment, but you have to wonder if maybe the primary election will be possibly be suspended because of this.
Well, people can't go to their polling places.
You're absolutely right.
And you know, and I'm sure that's something that they will sort out later.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure not a single one of these candidates is worrying about that at this moment.
No.
We heard the president call this a terrorist attack. That was before the explosion at the Pentagon. So the president is being fully briefed. He said he had talked to the governor. Now, the governor has an office in the World Trade Center. He was in Manhattan, but we do not know where he is. President Bush has said he has talked to the governor, so we assume that he is safe at this point. We are waiting for the mayor to give us some kind of information about casualties or injuries this morning.
Okay, we have another reporter out on the street, Walter Perez. Can you hear us, Walter?
Here we are about 2 blocks away from... Okay, 2 blocks away from where the whole thing happened, and this entire area has been cordoned off, and people that have been working in nearby buildings have been told to evacuate. That's what this mass exodus is to my left-hand side. To my right, we have 2 witnesses, and as we speak with you two, we're going to pan up and show a shot of what we see from this vantage point. First, Marna Ringel. And Marna, you work across the street. Tell me exactly what you saw on the street, and as you looked up, what you saw, because you said you saw the second one. Am I correct?
No, I didn't see the second one. I actually was coming out of the building, and there was maybe about 30 or 40 people at the bottom of One World Financial covered in blood. I did not expect that at all, and I work for Lehman in One right here, and a gentleman that I work with was on the telephone. He said, "What was that?" I said, you know, he thought it was thunder. I looked over, screamed, "It's a bomb," because I saw a piece of the building flow down, and I think I scared my entire floor because I can scream pretty loud, and it was pretty bad.
Now, you mentioned that you saw people on the road outside of the building. Explain that scene.
I saw there's maybe about 30 or 40 people covered with bandages and blood. It looks like a lot of them were either on the floor of one of the exchanges. There's actually, oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
We're not sure exactly what happened, but there was another explosion on the far side of one of the buildings from where we're standing. The reverberation, and another explosion on the right-hand side. Another building has gone up on the right-hand side of the road. People are now running down the street. We're not sure if that was another explosion or if that was advanced debris. Joining me also is Jim Plant. Jim, you're also a witness of what happened. Tell me exactly what you saw from your vantage point across the street.
I was just across Liberty and West here, and I saw the second plane hit the Tower 2. It looked like a 737. It hit a glancing blow. It didn't hit direct. I don't know where the rest of the plane went, but it went in, fireball came out, and it hit lower than the first plane, which hit the upper floors.
Jim, thank you very much. At this point, as you can tell, there's absolute pandemonium in this area because of what had just happened. Exactly what, I can't confirm, but on the far side of the building, there seemed to be another explosion, and also on the right-hand side, there was also another explosion. We're not sure if that was extra reverberation from what happened at the World Trade Center, or if that was an added explosion. At this point, there's a lot of smoke, massive plumes of smoke falling from the building across the street. People that were running down the street or walking are now running away. We don't have any information as far as what the most recent reverberations were, but from 2 blocks away, you could feel what happened. We'll get more information and pass it along to you.
All right, thank you very much, Walter. Again, 1 or 2 more explosions again around the World Trade Center. We don't know if it was in the same building or adjacent buildings.
Can we re-rack that video that we were looking at as Walter was interviewing those people, because perhaps that will give us some indication of what this was. Obviously, there are buildings nose to nose down there.
Yes.
We have no idea if this was a third explosion or if it might have been something from the debris raining down from one of the World Trade Center towers. It appears to be to the south of those buildings, but take a look at those pictures, and that is quite an incredible sight.
Again, this all started this morning at about 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. We understand that a commercial airliner, maybe a small commercial airliner, was apparently hijacked leaving the airport in Boston, Logan Airport in Boston, and slammed into one of the towers. About 18 minutes later, a second commercial airliner, which witnesses tell us was much bigger, slammed into the second tower. Soon after that, we heard from President Bush that said this was an apparent terrorist attack. Not long after he talked, a plane crashed very close to the Pentagon. From what we understand, down in the nation's capital, the White House, the U.S. Capitol, and the State Department have all been evacuated, and that the Secret Service did receive a very real threat that the White House would also suffer the same fate as the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, which has not happened yet, and we hope it doesn't. And, of course, all commercial traffic around the United States has been shut down.
Air traffic.
Yes.
Commercial air traffic.
All commercial air traffic.
Joining us now is Jim Rosenfield, who's been up in the newsroom. Do you have anything you can add to all of this?
Well, just, you know, in getting here to Rockefeller Center this morning to share with you, because you've been here in the studio, just the scenes on the street, people on their cell phones trying to find out what's going on, people calling loved ones trying to find out if they're okay. As you walk into this building, a lot of people out on the street not being permitted to go up and down through most of the elevators for security reasons. Obviously, as we think about the landmarks in Manhattan, people are taking very serious security precautions just for that reason. A lot of emotions I should share with you up in the newsroom, too, as we hear these just gut-wrenching eyewitness accounts of what these people must be going through, especially in the Twin Towers right now. Just amazing.
We have just been told that this, what we thought was another explosion, was indeed, according to the Associated Press, another building that has either been attacked or exploded. So it appears to be separate from the two that we have already witnessed this morning. And if you take a look at this scene right now, the smoke that is billowing over Lower Manhattan is truly a frightening sight to see. Again, the part that I think concerns all of us is that we have no knowledge of what happened to the people who might have been inside any of those buildings. It's a normal work day, and although the first explosion came early, it might have meant some people weren't there yet, but I guarantee you that there are a lot of people who were already in those buildings.
Sure, in the Twin Trade Towers, a lot of state workers in those buildings who get there well before 9 o'clock. And as you come down some of the major arteries in Manhattan, you can just see this smoke from miles away, a very eerie sight. As I was coming towards Midtown, you look up, and there's the smoke coming out of the World Trade Center.
How did you come to work today?
I actually walked most of the way because traffic is, as you would imagine, a complete mess. Emergency vehicles trying to make their way all down to downtown to Lower Manhattan. So it's difficult for anybody who's trying to get around. Bridges and tunnels, as you've been mentioning, are closed. So getting on and off the island isn't going to happen right now.
Okay, Jim, right now we have a terrorism expert on the telephone, Harvey Kushner. Harvey, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Harvey, this obviously has all the earmarks of terrorism.
Yes, unfortunately it does. And, you know, I've been in this business almost 40 years. And quite frankly, I couldn't have written a scenario like this. If I would have come forward with something like a possibility like this, they would have laughed. I mean, this has all of the worst-case scenarios put together into one. This is monumental. This will be something that, you get Gary Condit in the news, you have O.J. this is something that we're going to be looking at for the next couple of years, unfortunately, and not just from a media perspective, but from the people who've witnessed this. I mean, when you think of the psychological trauma this is going to cause to New Yorkers and to Americans, it's monumental. It's off the map.
As you see the scope of this and the methodical way in which it appears to have been planned and happened, and again, we don't know what truly occurred, but there's talk of aircraft being hijacked,
right,
of second explosions, of et cetera, et cetera. What, if there are signals you can read in that as an expert on all of this, what can you tell us about that?
Well, it shows that, you know, in the last couple of years, and I just got off of the embassy bombing trial, I was involved in that, and I've seen a picture painted of Osama bin Laden, not to say that he's involved in this necessarily, but of his network and his ability to try to do damage to the United States. And over the last couple of years, a lot of terrorism experts worldwide have been talking about the day of the freelancer, for those not familiar with the term, individuals who do things by themselves. Obviously, this type of event which occurred today is something that costs a lot of money, a lot of planning, such as what happened in the embassy bombing trial, and to blow up two embassies. And obviously, they had the will and the desire, many people, to be able to pull something like this off. I mean, think about hijacking a plane, the difficulties involved in that, but yet to have it flown into a building is just monumental in terms of timing, in terms of the ability of the number of people on that plane. I mean, if I had to surmise, I would think it wasn't just one individual. It had to be groups of individuals to be able to control something like that, to pull something like this off. And if the reports are true that we're having a coordinated attack at other American targets, such as the Pentagon or the White House or other buildings, this indicates that we're facing a new era. We're back to the old state sponsorship, large groups being involved in having the wherewithal and intelligence and the ability to pull something like this off. I mean, this is very, very serious. You know, I've been involved throughout the years in these various different exercises that we played, where we would talk about an event such as this, such as a biological attack or some other type of thing occurring. But this type of scenario never really was painted, because the type of planning to go into something like this was just thought to be not as possible as the launching of a chemical or a biological, even a small nuclear weapon. I mean, this is just something that, you know, brings goosebumps to me. And I've seen everything. I've been through everything. And this one tops it all in terms of the temerity, in terms of the planning, in terms of what the aftermath is going to be, the shock to the American psyche, to the American public. I mean, think about this. We try to calm people down by telling them, you know, the chances of you being involved in a terrorist act is very, very small. What do we tell people now when they walk around New York City and look up and see the trade towers on fire? We see other buildings exploding. We see people crying in the streets. I mean, this is a horrific event, and it's a very, very sad day in American history. And
Dr. Kushner, I don't know if you're watching television, but we are now showing our very first pictures of some of the victims of this today, and we can see some horrific, what appears to be burns.
Yes.
Some serious injuries. Again, this is video that we have just gotten in.
Yes, I'm watching it. I can see it.
We've also been told that the second tower that was hit by the second plane, which is One World Trade Center, we understand that that tower has actually collapsed at this point.
Well, I'm looking at this picture right now, and you cannot see the top of the second tower.
That's correct.
So a few moments ago, if you remember, there were just billowing smoke there.
We just have to hope that area was completely evacuated.
You know, if I might just interject this, I was involved in a civil litigation against the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey because I was representing with a team of attorneys who represented two clients who were in the B2 level. And the trade towers was warned many years in advance that there's a possibility of having a bomb placed in the bottom of the building. And my report showed that the construction of that building was in such beyond the code that even such a powerful bomb couldn't do the damage. But now looking at these pictures as we speak, it just, I'm choked up looking at it. thinking that this type of risk assessment wasn't there and we didn't have. But how do you guard against something like this? This means that you have to put a perimeter around New York in terms of flight pattern, in terms of having jets ready to shoot down planes that they're going into buildings. I mean, this opens up a new level. This has ratcheted up a new level in the annals of terrorism and what we face here as a country and as a civilization worldwide. I mean, people were looking at what was going on in the Middle East and not understanding the nature of the fear that people were going through on both sides, and now to be visited here in the United States, in the capital of the world, the crossroads of the world, with the symbol of American capitalism and American might just in ruins, brings a tear to an eye. I mean, think of the humanity that's lost in this type of thing, but think in terms of what it's going to do to us as a country. I mean, what type of procedures will we have to put into place? What protocols will we have to put into place at our airports, at our borders to protect against this? There'll be a human outcry about security that has never existed before in this country. This is just monumental. This is something that happens and you're in history and you don't realize that the world is going to change after an event such as this. I can't see America going back to where it was in terms of not looking at security, not looking at intelligence gathering, not looking at our ability to protect ourselves. This now is on the front page. It removes everything off. Every other story is gone. This is something that is going to be with us in the decades to come.
don't hear them. These guys? Now I do. hear it. Kennedy is evacuated. Chopper 4 to local desk. I'm getting bumped off because they're doing live shots. So JFK shut down medical supplies into LaGuardia. Where are we going? Teterboro? Explosion on Capitol Hill.
Billowing out of the building and how the other building is occluded. And everybody from this vantage point is, as Mr. Russo is saying, looking at it in horror, looking at it in fear, worried about yourself, I imagine. Where were you, sir?
Right underneath the Trade Center when it hit. The second one, both of them hit. We ran like hell all the way up here.
Did you happen to look up?
Yeah, we seen the second one run right into. We were unloading the truck. We got right out of there. Scariest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Didn't think it was that loud. Didn't feel that it was.
We were there. It was loud. I'm gonna tell you that. We were right there for both of them, and it was loud.
Windows coming down off the building.
Department DC. Chopper 4 local desk.
And what we're looking at spin around, we can see the picture from, this is from where we're standing. We're a good 20 blocks or more from the World Trade Center as we're standing here, and you can see the flames. You see where the hole is, and you can see how the hole, the original hole is, which is in the middle of the building. And if you look at it, you can see how the hole has grown. Also the flames below, maybe 10 floors below now, those flames have spread from the original fire. We've seen with binoculars, there have been people out here with binoculars. They've seen people in the buildings. There are still people in that tower. Another ambulance screaming through the area. Why are you running? What? What?
Everything that's going on around our world.